signs, I ain't blind. We unwind what they're really saying, genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Program to crave the basics, keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid, you're in debt for being born. Messengers are mourn, just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight is your Tuesday at night edition of Rogue Ways, and it is just me tonight. I'm bringing you some info on brainwaves and brain states because my recent interview with Mike Williams of Sage of Quay was so fascinating, and he is a hypnotherapist, which I didn't know before we met on Rogue Ways to chat about all the things we chatted about. We talked about mind control, we talked about hypnosis, we talked about brainwave, brain states, we talked about, I don't even remember all the things. It was an awesome conversation though. So if you want to go check out that most recent episode of Rogue Ways, that was a really good one. And we look forward to having Mike back on the show soon and in the future. And that should be really fun. But it got me thinking about brainwaves and states of our brains, activity levels and how those states can function, what they say about consciousness and all these other things. So today I had fun dropping down that little hole and checking all those things out. And so I look forward to bringing that to you. There's some creepy stuff, and there's also some silver linings as always. So it should be good. It should be fun. And today's 80s day. Obviously, I got my scoop neck shirt and my hair like this. So, unofficial 80s day. If you want to join me in celebrating the 80s, then bring it on. What's up to Sue Finelli in the chat? We got Deliberate Creation. Almost first for once. So close, so close. We've got Biggie Smollett. What is up? And we, and that's all. We have a lot more people who haven't said hi yet. So if you guys want to say what's up, then that is awesome. And I just want to let you guys know I am now on day 1 of the lead out of the Master Cleanse. So a couple episodes ago, I did a Master Cleanse episode because I was just starting or just getting into it. I was on day 3 or something. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. But I told you guys all about the Master Cleanse. And if you've never heard of it or done it before, then you might want to go check out that episode as well. But I am feeling fantastic. And today I finally, after 8 days of eating only fruits and vegetables, full vegan diet. That was my really, really long extended lead in. It's usually 3 days. So I did 8 days of that. And then I did 10 days of this Master Cleanse, where you only drink maple syrup, fresh squeezed organic lemon, and cayenne pepper mixed with water. And now today I finally have had orange juice, fresh squeezed organic orange juice. And that has been delicious and wonderful. I mean, it's funny, you get to a state of bliss where you're not even really missing food, if that's possible. You kind of think about food and you're like, that's going to be really fun to eat again. And you think about the different flavors and stuff, but it's not like this craving or this intensity that you have to battle, It's more like an awareness that these things exist and that you're going to be excited to have them again. But nothing can be better than this first sip of orange juice you get after 10 days of only the same flavor of maple syrup cayenne lemonade. It was amazing. So I've had fresh squeezed organic orange juice all day, which has not in any way decreased my state of calm and bliss that I get from the cleanse. And now I'm having this little treat of coconut water in my Rogue Ways mug. And it's coconut water with the pulp in it. So I even get to chew on some things, which is really fantastic. So I'm feeling fantastic. My body is healthy and great, and I'm so glad I did this for myself. And I still am encouraging all of you to do a cleanse or something like this if you haven't in a long time, or maybe you never have. You'll never regret doing this if you do it healthy and you do it the right way and you research and talk to your doctor, death doctors, because I have to say that to keep myself safe. But, I really encourage you to look into it and try it. It is worth it. You'll never regret it. Like I said, you'll only be grateful for all of the benefits that came to you from giving yourself this gift, from loving yourself enough to give yourself this gift of feeling really great and giving yourself a sort of reset. And again, as you lead out, today is orange juice and my little sneaky treat of coconut water, which is not really technically allowed, but it's it's fine. Tomorrow is going to be broth, homemade bone broth from organic beef bones, beef tallow bones, and then also, or marrow bones. And then also we're going to make a veggie soup. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be so delicious. And then the day after that, I'm going to make some really amazing salads. And that's going to be awesome. And then some smoothies. And then the day after that, I'm going to make some raw food pizza, which is great. And so you notice that, you have to ease out of this cleanse for many days of eating, again, very, very healthy, very whole foods, fruits and vegetables, and very light things, because your digestive system hasn't really been functioning for 10 days or more. So depending on how long you went. So you have to ease back into it. And that trajectory sort of gets you, like I said, like this reset in life, and you get to now eat much more healthily. That's a word now. Let's just say it is. And this is very satisfying because it tastes so good and you haven't had it for so long, and it just feels good to be eating again. And so it's really easy to maintain that for a really long period of time. So it's a nice way to kickstart any other health goals that you might have related to diet. So I just will stop talking about it soon, but I just want to encourage anyone who's thinking about it to do it. Let's see what the chat is saying so far before we jump into things. We got Chad Clemens in the house. What's up, Chad? It's good to see you back. A little too spicy is here. Hi. Robin Papalucas. What's up? Watermelon fast for 10 days works wonders, Robin says. That's awesome. I've never heard of the watermelon fast, but it sounds delicious and delightful. Robin did a 35-day potassium broth fast. Is the best thing in the world. Fasting 2 times a year is recommended. Yes, every 6 months is a great time to do it. And we try to time it around the solstices and equinoxes or whatever, schedule we're on. But it doesn't always happen. Sometimes there's things and reasons why we do it other times. But it is a really good idea to do it twice a year. Absolutely agreed. And potassium broth fast sounds really good. I'm imagining that is a bone broth, but I am not sure because I know that is high in potassium and magnesium. DJ Register X7X says, when is Phoenix coming back on? Anytime, dude. Phoenix is awesome. I love having Phoenix on. I don't want to saturate my audience. We've had 4 episodes with Phoenix in the past few months. So, we'll wait maybe a few weeks at least, but definitely soon. We have so many questions from people for the IDF machine, and I'm excited to get to all those. So if you have some questions you want to put on the list that we can try to get to next time Phoenix is on, we're planning on doing an episode where we just do the full 2 hours or however long we can go of just answering questions. And so that'll be a really fun episode. And so if you have questions for that and you want to send them to corey.sharman@gmail.com, I will add them to the list. I'll throw that in the chat right now. It's QUORRI. This is my pen name if you didn't know. corey.sharman@gmail.com. And send me those questions. That would be amazing. We've got Howie Dunn in the house. Salutations to you too. The digital apparition says master cleanses is for losers, which is funny because he just got done with one with me. DBE Media, what's up, Drew? Says congrats on making the cleanse goals. Thank you. It was awesome. I'm so glad. I'm so proud of myself. It gives you that boost of I can do anything. That's one more reason to do it. Jersey Bob, what's up? Don't die it, live it. I might agree, but I'm not sure. And the digital apparition says the watermelon cleanse will clean the blood. Let's clean the blood, man. I've just been cleaning our, I don't know, actually, intestines at least, and maybe adrenals or kidneys or I'm not even really sure. I get all kinds of cleanse effects, so who knows? But let's jump into things here. Oh, I want to show you one more thing. I've shown you guys before, but just so you know, I make these fantastic pendants that can hang from your neck on a necklace, or in your car or in your house, and they're orgonite. They have 4 layers in them, and they are one of a kind. They are artistic pieces, and they are beautiful. The light kind of washes this whole scene out, honestly. So if you want to see the colors more truly, you'll go to my site, rogueways.org or corysharman.com, and click on shop and click on orgonite pendants. And I have a few of these precious babies left. I know I keep saying I'm making another batch soon. I really am. It's coming. I just, life happens and I do 10 million projects at once because that's how I roll. So I just get carried away. I really like these long, thin ones. These are really cool when you're wearing these, and they're hanging just a long, thin pendant. These ones are neat. And then I just have a few more little ones for you guys. So if you want these are only like $10, $15, $20 depending on the size. So if you go check them out, they're super cheap. And that includes shipping within the US, I believe, is how I price them. So, so the price you see is the price you pay. There's no tax or anything else. Yes, diet, not live it. Don't diet, live it. Oh, it's not a diet, it's a cleanse. Yeah, thanks for making that distinction. It's definitely not a diet. It's not meant to lose weight, although you do tend to lose weight because you're cleaning out a lot of shit that your body's holding on to, literally, and more. And so you do lose some weight, you lose some water weight, you lose, maybe a couple pounds, but you're still having the calories you would normally have in a day. So you don't necessarily lose a bunch of weight. It's more for the health effects of cleansing your body from toxins. And that is the part that you'd want to do this for. So yes, John Jacob is in the house. 80s hair bands fast. Yes, you have to do your hair like 80s every single day that you're on the cleanse. That's how it goes. Yes, thank you. John Jacob says, orgonite is a substance made of resin, metals, and quartz that balances and harmonizes bioenergy, otherwise known as orgone, chi, or prana. Yes, and this comes from Wilhelm Reich, right? I hope I'm not messing that up. I'm bad with details in the moment. I don't retain them. I retain the concepts. But yeah, super cool orgonite pendants for you and anyone you love. I had someone buy like 7 of them, and it was awesome. Whoops. I always do that, man. I don't want to show you my OBS screen. I want to show you this screen. So let's jump into things tonight. I always like to start by reminding you that I have this site that is awesome fun. I've done a little bit of redesigning recently and just added a few little touches here. So if you haven't seen it for a while, it might be something fun for you to go poke around at. If you look at the top along the tabs, you can find my published works. This includes all of the books that I've written thus far, except for the one that is just about to drop, which is the sequel to Sine Curve of Aeons. You can grab Sine Curve of Aeons here, this links you to Amazon. You can grab it there. I think it's $22 now. It's quite a thick book. It honestly is like 3 books in one on its own, but it is a fantastic epic saga of a love that transcends time and space, of good and evil battling throughout the progression of humanity through the cycles of time and the yugas. It's a awesome, beautiful story and super fun to read. You can get that in hardcover here from Lulu. I honestly think it's the same price. I could be wrong. You can get A Gypsy on the Res, which is about my time teaching on a Native American reservation at a public school there. It's hilarious, irreverent, and deeply touching. It's super short little vignettes. I think there's like 20 chapters, and they're all like 3 or 4 pages each. It's pretty short. And Mutable Realia is my old collection of poetry. I'm going to, of course, drop the sequel to Sine Curve. I'm really honestly guessing within a few weeks here at this point. I just finished editing chapter 25, and it's 33 chapters long, so pretty quick. And then I'm going to also do another book of poetry soon. So look for more from me. I also have a page that describes my tarot readings that I give. They are safe. They are intuitive. They connect with your highest self, your spiritual guides, your, conception of God, your soul, however you think of that higher intelligence that is connected to in this reading. People who get readings from me talk about them as being profound, as life-changing, as really clarifying. If you have a problem or a stumbling block or just something that you want more clarity on, then this can be a really great option for you. So check out the tarot page to read more about that. There is the shop. I always like to point out you can get the same mug that I am drinking out of most episodes here in the Rogue Gear section of the shop. All kinds of stuff with the Rogue Ways logo on it. And that is nice if you can support me. I don't make a lot of money off that stuff. To be honest, I make about $1 out of each item that someone buys. But it's just fun to get the logo out there. And if you're, someone like me who loves the logo, then you want to wear it and have it on your things. Here, like I said, is the orgonite as well in the shop. Those are the same pieces I just showed you if you want to check those out. And of course, there is the irreverent merch, which are just fun slogans that come up on the show, or fans submit things they'd like to see on a t-shirt. And so those are in irreverent merch. They're pretty fun. And then finally, there's classes and tarot section of the shop. I do teach classes mostly on spiritual development, allies, protection, that kind of thing. I do guidance sessions for people who don't want a tarot reading but want the same effect of a tarot reading, of being able to gain clarity of goals in life or problems in life. And I do have 2 copies left of Sine Curve of Aeons here for you at $10. That's more than a 50% discount, and that's not even including that you're not paying tax or shipping if you're in the United States, and that you get an inscription from me, and I always throw in a Rogueways sticker or 2, so go grab those last 2 copies if you've been wanting to read the book and haven't yet made the plunge. Finally, I want to point out that Phoenix Aurelius and I are now partnered. I am an affiliate for Phoenix Aurelius's Apothecary and Lab. So I do have these links all over the site now and their own page. If you purchase from Phoenix through me on my site, I get a tiny little sliver of kickback. And honestly, it's one of the only times I would do that in my life because I have so much faith and understanding of Phoenix's ability and purity of his products. He does wild crafting. He's amazingly high quality. And if you've seen him and listened to him talk, you know of his knowledge. And so all of his products I can get behind 100%. And that's the only reason I would ever do something like this. So I feel really good about this. And if you want to help both of us out, then you can go there through Rogueways or just go to his site and buy it, honestly. Either way, because I think that his products are going to be really good for you. And they've changed, my life and other people's lives, and they can change yours too. So check him out. And finally, you can support me on Subscribestar, my favorite way of being supported. Monthly subscriptions at various levels. You have the $1, $7, $22, and $55 level. They all unlock various, goods and services or, perks for you. And so the Rogue Soul at $55 a month does give you $5 a month off of a tarot reading. Basically, you get all of Subscribestar and a personalized one-on-one tarot reading with me, which I do via Skype or Zoom so that you can keep the video of it. I give you a summary afterwards, and I give you the picture of the whole layout so that you can continue to ponder. I super appreciate all the people who subscribe on Subscribestar, and I would love it if you would jump over the barrier and go to Subscribestar and subscribe at least at the $1 level if you find value in Rogueways. I really appreciate all of you doing that. It means a lot to me to be able to get value back for this value that I give you. So thank you. And now we'll jump into the topic, but I'll check in with the chat real quick over here and see what you guys are talking about. Wilhelm Reich. Yes, thank you, Howie Dunn, for telling me I was right. We've got Gordon Hamill in the house. Gordon, it's awesome to see you. The topic tonight actually has a lot to do with Gordon and the subjects that Gordon and I talked about on his episode of Rogueways. If you want to go back and find that episode, pretty fascinating story that Gordon has. And by the end of this discussion tonight, I think you'll understand why. What's up, Mateo? The 90s. Oh, maybe it's a 90s hairdo and not an 80s hairdo. Mateo says this is a 90s Nickelodeon TV show. Clarissa explains it all. Dude, I hate Nickelodeon, though. They're such mind control experts, those assholes. But I totally get you. And yes, I take that as a compliment. Oh, I love that. Howie Dunn says, I found this rock that somebody painted. A cute little fox on it. It said, shh, I'm hiding. Posted up on a newspaper dispenser at the gas station, and it inspired me to make some woke-ass rocks. That's rad. That's like taking that community art project and making it something that is really valuable. I mean, they are valuable anyway. If you don't know, there's this whole, subculture, basically, of people who paint rocks and leave them places for people to find. Sometimes there's like a Facebook group or something on the back, and you can post that you found the person's rock. You're supposed to take it. If you want, you can rehide it for someone else. Or if you want, you're supposed to paint your own and then go hide that somewhere for someone else. So making woke rocks, I love it. You're like playing this game that a lot of, especially kids and parents, so maybe don't do like lewd ones, but just ones that will make people think and question, where they're at and what's going on in the world. I love that idea. Very cool, Howie. We got Theo Kirkley here today. What's up, Theo? Yes, I love it. Okay, so let's jump in. So some of this might be pretty basic for some of you, but I just like to make this kind of a complete, A to Z if I can. And so we're just going to start. We're going to look at the various states of the brain. And of course we have, as Mike Sage of Quay pointed out, we have these 4 states of brainwaves, and we have beta, alpha, theta, and delta. But what I found out is that we also have a 5th that he didn't mention and that I don't think I've ever heard, which is gamma. And if I have heard it, I just blocked it out or something. I don't know. I didn't remember it. I remembered those 4 that he mentioned, and that was it. So, pause for coconut milk. You have no idea how good this coconut water is. Like, seriously, it's the best thing I've ever had. I love it. Probably because it has, like, fats in it. Anyway, as they point out, it is important to understand that your brain contributes to your state of mind. And, you know, it's a funny thing that sometimes we don't even think of the difference between our brain and our mind, or our brain and our consciousness. But there is a difference, right? Your brain is the actual gray matter, and your consciousness of your mind is that sort of elusive other thing that goes on that involves our, like, thoughts and our perceptions and our interpretations and our imagination and all of these things. And so those are 2 separate things, but clearly they're going to affect each other, because clearly by some level of intuition or, you know, experience of seeing brain matter changed physically and therefore affecting someone's personality or consciousness level, like, we understand that they're related. So of course they affect each other, right? And it's interesting too that they point out that we're attempting to become happier, more spiritual beings. It's an interesting assumption, but I think it's true. I can basically agree with that. All right, so they're going to look at the 5 brain waves, and these are actually real. You know, they're not some woo-woo thing. They're not like auras and other things where you could kind of argue whether they're real or not. These are measurable. It's recreatable. You can measure them anywhere in the world with the right equipment, and maybe even without. And of course, they've been studied extensively for a long, long time, especially by those who would like to control our brains. So here they are. It says they're produced by neurons in our brain that communicate with each other by electrical change. So there is the method of their creation. The neurons creating electrical change. It's not even saying electrical like charge or electrical current. It's like electrical change. So when they change their electrical, I don't know, productivity or whatever, messaging, I guess, then it changes our state of brain. All right. Why do they matter? It's interesting on these. This is just becoming so much more mainstream, but this is a pretty, you know, mainstream-ish blog. And it says, we easily forget that we are the controllers of our reality. How true? That is so true, right? We know that this is true at the very base level that they're going to describe, which is just, you know, in as much as you can sort of influence your brain state and use it to your advantage and whatnot. But also, I think many of us have understood that we can literally control our physical reality as well. And that that's going to have a lot to do with our brain waves or brain state as well. It's not necessarily that reality is made up of outside influences, but actually reality believes of our thoughts, beliefs, and mindset. It's pretty true, right? We talk about this a lot in various traditions that, you know, you can change your mind or your understanding or your framing of something and interpret it differently, and that can actually affect your mood and your beliefs and your thoughts. And that is honestly a lot of your experience is based on those things. So that level is like pretty well established, pretty true. But it's interesting because it's like, I don't think they're even trying to be metaphysical about it, but they're saying things like this. You can open your subconscious mind and create your reality at will. Interesting. Anyway, the 5 types, as we said, are beta, alpha, theta, delta, and gamma waves. These are actual measurable electric waves that your brain produces and that can be measured. And they're all frequencies which are measured in cycles per second. And they get very precise. The ranges at which each phase or wave or state shifts are very precise and known and measured. So we'll keep that in mind as well. And here we go for the first one. Beta, it says, is 14 to 40 hertz, right? Very specific. I wonder if 40 is as high as we go. What happens above 4? Oh, never mind. We'll get there. This is the beta is our waking consciousness. And don't ask me why these go out of order. You'd think they'd be like alpha, beta, delta, gamma. I don't know why, dude, but this is just the way that they went for whatever reason. So beta, even though it's B and not A, is our kind of primary state, you would think, where it's the waking consciousness, the reasoning state that we're in. This is where it does say heightened, but I do think they just mean not necessarily a heightened state of alertness, like you're like paranoid or anxious, but just that you're alert. Alert, logic, and critical reasoning. It's not written very well. While beta brainwaves are important for effective functioning throughout the day, they also can translate into stress, anxiety, and restlessness. Okay, so they do mean that. You can have, I guess, a higher, maybe it's like when you're getting up towards 40, who knows? But somewhere in the beta state, you can dip into stress, anxiety, and restlessness. In fact, beta can be described as a nagging little inner critic. So I guess it's just our alert, awake, normal sort of state, I guess, in our society at least. Maybe the reason that alpha comes second here and we think of it as secondary is that it tends to be in our society, but actually it should be the sort of main state that we're in, this deep relaxation wave of alpha. So it's between 7.5 and 14 hertz. So it's lower hertz. Further down the scale, and maybe, yeah, I don't know why you would go down and then back up. Anyway, I'll get off my trying to understand why they named them what they did. But these are present in deep relaxation. Sometimes they emerge when we're daydreaming, right? If we're just in this really deep daydream that we're kind of lost in our head. In light meditation, it says. So there's other forms of meditation that will produce other brain states, which we'll get into. And it says it's an optimal time to program the mind for success, to sort of maybe visualize success, use those techniques where you're visualizing and like repeating mantras and whatnot. It does say it heightens your imagination, your visualization, your memory, your learning, and your concentration. So in this deep relaxation wave is probably the perfect time, in so many ways, to program your mind, hopefully just by you and not by others. But we'll keep in mind when we're in these alpha states. It does say the alpha waves are a gateway to your subconscious mind. And that can be dangerous, but it can also be really good and helpful if you're doing it for yourself with conscious choice and using it to your advantage. It says the alpha is our intuition, which is an interesting claim to make. And that it becomes clearer and more profound the closer you get to 7.5. So that's that lower end. So the closer you get into the next lower down state of your brain. I don't know for sure that alpha is your intuition, but I like the idea. It could be true. At the very least, it seems like the calmer you are and the more you're in a state like this, but still aware and in control of yourself, that you would be most likely to sort of land on those insights and intuitions that would lead you somewhere special. Then we have theta. And as it points out, it could be light meditation gets you into theta. But again, that would be at that lowest end of alpha almost. But it also is the sleeping wave. So theta brainwaves are present during deep meditation and light sleep, right? So you're not sleeping deeply. Okay, why would it say that? Including the all-important REM dream state. So you are sleeping deeply. Theta waves are present then during deep meditation, light sleep, and REM state is how it should read. It is the realm of our subconscious. It's only experienced momentarily as you drift off to sleep from alpha. So that's in that hypnagogic state where you can be both aware and aware and alert, but also in this theta brain state. And I believe this is the state that was also talked about with Mike Williams when he was talking about when you are in hypnosis, then you're going to be in this theta state. Thank you so much, Theo Kirkley, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Theo says, what are the different parts of the human do you believe? Do you believe our consciousness is local to the brain? No, I don't. In fact, I did a whole episode which you could look at. I believe it's literally called Non-Local Consciousness, in which I talk about all of the experiences, and I think it was a panel discussion, and that maybe there was 3 other people talking with me, and I believe we go over all the various different sort of mostly subjective, but also other pieces of data that sort of imply that our consciousness is not local, in fact, and that it comes from wherever or exists wherever, maybe in, a nearby dimension, who knows, and kind of comes through us in this body. And I've experienced various things that seem to indicate that is so, and so that's where I sort of stand right now. And as far as the different parts of the human, I mean, I honestly believe that we are just one being, one thing, right? But I think I understand what you're saying, in that we have this physical body, which genuinely I think is like the least us, if that's, if that makes sense. Like we're not our body really. This is more like a tool that we use in order to be here in this place, whatever this place is. This body is sort of required for us to interact with it very well. And so it's us, but it's not really like the real me, I think, exists separately from this body, uses this body as a tool, comes through it, really highly identifies with it, unfortunately, but is actually something else, which I would like to think is my consciousness or my soul. I know some people separate out the spirit from the soul, and so I don't really know yet how to really talk about that, but I kind of understand that as well. One is sort of the, maybe like, if you could imagine all souls and all consciousness in one, which, is maybe our true state, almost like just this is God, right? Then that's maybe the soul. If I'm getting it backwards, forgive me. And then your spirit is the sort of individuation of that, your sort of everlasting self and consciousness that seems separate from that, something like that. So you might count that as two different parts. But yeah, when they say body, mind, and soul, I think that we might be getting at that part. Although I tend to think, depending on your point of view and the lens you're looking at and your tradition, that the mind is actually this sort of trap almost. Your mind is almost like these attachments to sensation and perception and self that aren't really real and that you get caught up in, and they can become like an addiction. And so you have this mind that just like races and fills time and space with all these almost pointless things. But I'm not 100% on that, but I just it's just something I want to throw out there since we're talking about it. Fantastic question. Thank you for that. So back to theta waves, or down into the light meditation and the sleeping wave. It does say that a deep spiritual connection can come across you at this point. You can feel this sort of unity with the universe that you could experience in theta waves. But it also points out this fascinating little nugget, which again, all these claims on this site are unsupported. So don't, take it with a grain of salt. But they say your mind's most deep-seated programs are at theta. Your most deep-seated programs. I don't prefer to talk about us like we are programmable beings. However, it seems, given our brain, that we are in a way. And this is part of, I think, that trap of the mind that I was just talking about, is that you can be, I think, programmed in a way that is not necessarily in alignment with your soul or your spiritual truth if you get too attached and too identified with your mind or your body, or both. So it's interesting to put it that way. At another level, we could think about it like our habits, our most deep-seated habits are here. And if we can get into this state consciously, we can undo some of those. So I do a lot of work with a program I'll show you later to get into this state consciously. And I try to undo some of my trauma and my phobias in that state. And I have a lot of success in that state doing things like this. I shouldn't say a lot. There's probably people who are really, really good at this. And I'm totally a beginner newbie. But I have had some luck. And I will show you the tools to allow you to have some luck too if you like that idea. But it does point out you can have vivid visualizations, great inspiration, profound creativity, and exceptional insight. And that is all, in my experience, true as well. And unlike the other brainwaves, the elusive voice of theta is a silent voice. I don't know what that means. Like, why would you say that? I don't know what it means. It's kind of creepy because later we're going to talk about something that has the term silent voice attached to it, and it's not a good thing. So again, all of these things that we're learning here, they're tools. We can use them for good. We can use them for evil. All right. We're going to drop down then to delta, and that's the deep sleep wave. So this is 0.5 to 4 hertz. 0.5. So that's almost 0. That's getting really, really low. So this is like maybe when our soul can kind of detach from our body and go traveling because we're like so almost disassociated from that gray matter we call a brain. It is the slowest of the brainwave frequencies. It occurs in deep, dreamless sleep and during the transcendental meditation. That's fascinating. This different types of meditation gets you into various states. So we already saw every state except beta had mentioned meditation. So beta is the only one where we're maybe like fully in our mind and like racing thoughts, and not even racing necessarily, but just thoughts and, being alert. But alpha has a sort of light meditation. Theta had the sort of light but deeper meditation possible also, and especially if you can stay aware into that hypnagogic state, then a deeper meditation. Then delta is this deep meditation, it says. This is the realm of our unconscious mind, gateway to the universal and collective unconscious. So again, unsupported claims, but possibly true. Seems true to me in a lot of ways. Information received here is often unavailable at the conscious level. So it's interesting. I don't know. I guess that's why your brain, your consciousness, whatever it is, would need to communicate to you mostly in symbols in dreams, because it's probably pretty hard to get you to notice the information it's trying to give you in a way that would be meaningful. And that's why I love dreams, man. Dreams are crazy. Gamma waves are then above 40. So again, you notice we started at 40 and below, 14 to 40 at beta, then dropped down to alpha, then dropped down to theta, then dropped down to delta, almost zero. Now we're jumping back up above 40. So this is like beyond, more cycles per second than our alert, awake mind. And this is the insight wave, they're calling it on this site, but really it's a gamma wave. At 40 hertz and above, the gamma wave is at the fastest frequency our brain makes. I wonder how high it goes. That'd be crazy to know. While little is known about this state of mind, initial research shows gamma waves are associated with bursts of insight and high-level informational processing. So let's actually ask really quick, because we want to know what's the highest, what are the most hertz recorded in brain waves? I hope I'm saying that right. Like, what's the highest? What's the most? Excuse me while I drink my coconut water. I wish that questions could just be like answered, but I don't know if they're going to tell me. Let's look at a brainwave chart and see if that helps us. Let's move this back to where we were. Brainwave chart. Okay, that's not going to tell us anything. Whatever. Anyway, it'd be interesting to know. If anyone can find out, let me know. But let's jump over to this site. This site was interesting because it's talking about those 5 brain waves and that connection with flow state. And if you've heard of flow state, it was the big rage a few years ago, hacking your flow state and like creating your flow state, getting in your flow state. And it's basically this place where people describe being kind of so engaged in what they're doing that they almost like stop thinking completely and just like respond in the moment. Time slows down and it's really easy. Everything seems incredibly easy. And I mean, it almost sounds like being on certain drugs. It's very interesting that we can get into that state just naturally. And so they go through some of the things that we just went through. Gamma, beta, theta, alpha, delta. It does seem to say that the flow state happens in alpha and between alpha and theta, which is interesting. I would have guessed gamma. Oh no, it is. Okay, here's what it says about gamma brainwaves, which are the fascinating ones for me. So I wanted to know. Gamma brainwaves are the fastest brainwaves, the highest frequency, and the most recently discovered brainwave state. So maybe that's why because I told you at the beginning of the show, I only remembered the 4, and I had never, or if I had heard of it, I hadn't really thought of gamma waves. So I wonder if it's almost like our recent development that humans were able to achieve this, and it would kind of go along with the idea that we are evolving in consciousness, perhaps. So that's interesting to think about. It relates to simultaneous processing of information from different brain areas. So that physically, the different areas of your brain would be processing all at once, which would explain why it feels like a flow state and why you're sort of like up above it all looking down and everything seems so easy and so interconnected. These are involved in higher processing tasks as well as cognitive functioning. So that's what I didn't expect. I didn't expect it to be so logical, sort of. I expected it almost to be like the delta state. Was it delta that was down the lowest? And be almost like subconscious, making the subconscious conscious or something. But I mean, maybe it is, and maybe it's making the subconscious more cognitively accessible, which would be fascinating. It's almost like coming full circle. It is important for learning, memory, and information processing. But here it points out if you have too much gamma waves, which I don't know what it means by too much. Does it mean for too long of a period of time? Does it mean like too high of, too fast of waves? Then it results in anxiety, high arousal, and stress. But if you have too little, it might result in ADHD, depression, and learning disabilities. Interesting. So if you could just, get someone's brain to sink into gamma wave state, then maybe you can help them get past ADHD, depression, and learning disabilities. It says optimal gamma waves result in binding senses, cognition, information processing, learning, perception, and REM sleep. So there is some connection here with like accessing your subconscious. Interesting. And they can be increased through meditation. So again, there's certain forms of meditation that put you into gamma state, but then there's other forms that put you into other states. So every meditation is different. And I guess you got to figure out which one you want, what you want to do with it and why, and then figure out how to get into that state. I'm going to guess most of us who meditate probably get into that alpha state more often than anything else. I'm going to guess it's probably rare to get into the flow state or to get into that sort of unconscious, deep meditation. But yeah, it's interesting that gamma waves can only be increased through meditation, supposedly. I doubt it. I bet there's like a physical, mechanical method that they have of inducing it, but we'll get there. And each wave they show you, there's too much results in something negative and too little results in something negative. So like anything, you want balance in all things, right? But if you have optimal beta waves, you have high conscious focus, memory, and problem solving. And you can increase it says, through coffee, energy drinks, and flow. I don't like that answer. I don't like the beta state very much. I feel like that's what our society focuses on. You should always be in beta, but it's not necessarily actually probably good for you, especially if you need coffee and energy drinks to get there. And every other state is associated with some type of meditation. It's just interesting to think about. This is like our kind of active functioning state that we need to be in to get shit done, I guess. Maybe we'd sit around laughing and like, eating cake all day if we didn't have beta waves. Who knows? So it says, again, alpha is the flow state zone. That's interesting. It's like light meditation. But didn't it also say that about gamma? No, it just said you could reach gamma through meditation. Interesting. I don't want to go through too much, too little, and what happens with each. But the the alpha, it can be increased through alcohol, marijuana, relaxants, and some antidepressants. That's fascinating because I think this is how sort of negative entities can get through to us because we're in this state of like where we should be meditating and utilizing our consciousness in a certain way. And instead we're like high or drunk, we're on uppers or whatever, downers of some kind or barbiturates or whatever. And instead we're sort of wasting that state. And so this other entity's like, oh, I'll use this then. Or something. This is a working hypothesis. Theta waves can be increased through depressants. Again, I'm starting not to like this site because every single state, it's like giving us drugs to get there, which are not horrible. Like do whatever you want. I think that getting there naturally is even better and you'll stay more clear and it'll be more useful to you. Delta waves can be increased through depressants and sleep. So anyway, interesting, at least talked about gamma and the way that gamma can be perceived or thought about. So a little bit more than the last site. This was interesting. I just wanted to show you this. This is called conscious discipline. I am not promoting this. I don't know enough about it to say whether it's good or bad. I just thought it was interesting that what it is it's a way for parents to parent their child, to use I don't know if they even think discipline is the right word. Maybe it's an alternative to discipline either, but a response, it says discipline here. Okay, so we'll go with discipline. I just think that word has negative connotations, but it's a conscious discipline brain state model. So it's asking parents to be aware of the brain state, the brain waves of their child, and understand when is the best time to use problem-solving endeavors in order to help your child get over any blockages. It's pretty interesting. Again, I think we get like on shaky ground when we start manipulating humans based on their brain state. So like take that how you will. But I also think that it's important to understand that if someone's in the wrong state, you can't accomplish something. So if you're like fighting them and you're trying to force them to do something and, you start arguing because you're frustrated and yelling and they're not even in a brain state where they can like function and understand and gain wisdom and solve conflict, then what's the point, right? So there is something to that, at least, thinking about this. It gets creepy. They say things like, they have I love you rituals. Why do you have to use the word rituals? I don't get it. Anyway, it is kind of interesting. So they do try to teach, parents how to do this. In the broad spectrum, if we're not thinking about how horrible some humans are, and we're not thinking about, how rituals can be misperceived, and how we're not thinking about like how you can control people through their brain states, then at the broadest level, I can say it's kind of cool to try to get parents to think about what their kid is going through and thinking and feeling and what state they're in. Because I think a lot of parents in the kind of old school model tend to just be like, whatever I say goes whenever I say it. And, maybe being a little bit more responsive could be good. So I just thought it was interesting. This came up in my search and I wanted to point it out. But again, in no way am I promoting it. I have many questions about it before I could ever do that. Let's check in with the chat. Austin Beach is here. You made it. Good to see you. Thank you, Chad. I aim to... Basically, this is me having fun learning about things, and I'm super psyched that other people like to learn about things with me, so it's fun. Interesting. Gordon says all the hypnosis books he read did not mention gamma states, and so he thinks it's a new discovery. So we agree on that. Can we trust new? Chad says. I'm reluctant. I agree. It's interesting to think about, especially... there's a difficult thing in my brain that I'm going to have a hard time explaining, but this idea, if we are in some sort of hollow fractal universal projection or simulation, or this is some sort of place like that, and we maybe you want to get out of it. Part of me feels like dialing things down towards, what was it, delta, would help that more than dialing things up towards gamma. But I'm not a scientist. Theo says, I've been in the flow state playing tennis. I remember predicting where the ball would land as if I was reading the future 20 seconds ahead. It was intense. I remember people calling it the zone. Yeah, the zone is the same thing, I think, as the flow state. And yeah, they say that it's easiest to get into playing sports. So that's why I don't know why that site we were just looking at wants to talk about all the drugs you can use to get there. But yeah, I think playing sports, doing something that requires sort of intense physical and intense mental tends to, I think, snap people into it faster. I know when I got in a car accident one time, I feel like I was in a flow state. Every single thing stood out in perfect detail, and all of it is still very vivid in my memory. And so there's another possibility, is that when you're in a state of acute danger, that perhaps that also causes the flow state. Being fully in the moment. Yes. All the things you perceive when you're fully in the moment is wild. But yes, it does take a lot of practice to get into those deeper states. Thank you. I think I do have a pretty good bullshit sniffer. I at least have a pretty good list of questions to ask. All right, so we're on fandom again. This site got me weirded out the other day. If you guys remember on the Great Reset, there was something that was impossible for me to tell what it was even about, a game or a movie or just someone's wild theory or a book or anything, but it had like the next many hundred years mapped out as though it's fact or history or going to happen. It was interesting. So I still don't really understand what fandom is, but this is an actual article about brain state, and it seems true based on what I could tell. So just interesting that, I don't know. I don't understand what fandom is. It's some kind of a wiki. I think it's meant to be for games, movies, and TVs, but here we are on psychology, and that's interesting. So why did I choose this article? There's always a reason. I just sometimes forget because I have so many open. Because I had this interesting debate in this article about what like the sort of purpose of our brain states are and what they would have to do with us as beings. So it says the most popular brain state theory holds that the only thing that matters is happiness. An egoistic interpretation claims that all of an agent, that's us, actions aim to promote his or her own happiness. An ethical alternative to this account holds that what matters most is the greatest happiness for the greatest number. In both cases, the one and only concern or legitimate concern for human action is that the matter of the brain be organized in a particular way. So they're saying the whole point that your brain would organize itself in a certain way and create certain states, for you to function with would be to create happiness either for yourself or the highest number of people. It's interesting, but they point out that if this were true, all that would ever matter was putting a brain in a particular state, and then all of your energy would be devoted exclusively to keeping your brain in that state, because you would feel happiness, right? No matter what was going on outside of you, if you were in a certain brain state and, with nothing conflicting, then you would feel happy. So why don't we see humans just trying to get into one brain state? You might argue that we do. You might argue that that's what drugs are for, and that's why people get addicted to drugs, and that's why people avoid certain things, and who knows what. So it could get really convoluted if we wanted to argue this or not argue it. But who knows, right? But there's another objection to this, and this is the hedonist idea that our main primary motivator is happiness and pleasure. And where was the other one? See, I need to get the highlighter thing that would let me keep highlighting on the page after I've read it. Basically, I'm not going to find it right now. Basically, it's saying there's plenty of things we do that make us unhappy and that do not give us pleasure and that do not necessarily lead in the greatest amount of happiness or pleasure for others either. And so it's just not necessarily true that that's what brain states are for. And the whole reason I like this is because if that is the long-standing theory about what our brain states are for, I'm glad that people are poking holes in it, because I think you and I probably agree that our brain states are more for experiencing different levels of reality and being and functioning at sort of different levels, and you might even say at different dimensions. So I think that it's nice that we're at least starting to poke holes in that at the very least. And that was my whole point of this very long article. This is, of course, dangerous that we have these different states because, like we said, each one is conducive to different things. And even on that first article we read, they used the word programming a lot, that you could be programmed in different states. And that seems to be true. And so we want to point out, just like we did with Mike Williams the other day on stage of Quay, that your television, how did he say it? Your TV is a hypnosis box, I think is what he said. And it gets you down into that alpha state. And of course, the alpha state is that one in which we are almost in a light meditation. We're more programmable, we're more receptive, and it's a place where we can literally rewrite or rewire our brain. And this is known. It is known. And if it's known, then people are using it against you. It's interesting to note that television does inform your understanding and your actions and your behaviors, even if you're too young to know what you're watching. The idea is that your subconscious mind takes that all in and stores it somewhere, and you're getting used to, you're a little sponge when you're a tiny one. And so you're taking that all in, and it adds to the sort of heap of things that you can use to inform yourself. And so they have done studies on it, and it does seem that this affects them, even to the point where it says the more television a child watched as a toddler, the more likely it was that they'd be fat, bullied, bad at math, inactive, and prone to misbehavior in the classroom. It's also true that they're less likely to be readers and have high vocabularies. This is likely more because you didn't have enough time, eye-to-eye contact with an adult who was, showing you facial expressions and lip movements and sounds, and your brain absorbing the words in a more active state of learning. But who knows? So we know that these things are sort of creating shitty kids, basically. We also know it lowers our attention span. This is all aside from the horrible things that can be done with the programming aspect of getting you into a certain brain state and then giving you all kinds of information. with all kinds of cues and triggers that your brain responds to, but also these things. It lowers your attention span. Your eyes are flicking around really quickly, just like they would watching a fire. It's part of why your brain responds to a TV, because it flickers at this certain rate. And also things are changing really quickly. It's changing scene, changing colors, changing whatever. You're getting used to this level of input. And so when you no longer have that, it's almost like you're withdrawing from a drug. You would like to have it back, and your brain would like to have something moving that quickly and informing your senses that quickly and that often. And so when you don't, you have this thing we call ADD, ADHD. It's at least a big precursor to it if you watch a lot of TV. And our phones are the same. So all of us are giving ourselves ADD and ADHD by using all these screens all the time. It does alter your dreams. When you're watching black and white television, they've shown that you would have monochromatic dreams, right? So you start seeing your imaginative world in the same way that the TV was. So this is just something that was easy to measure. Imagine all of the other ways your dreams are affected and ways that you might not, that might be more subtle, more difficult to pull out, more difficult for a study to measure. Very interesting. If you had no television, I wonder how vivid our dreams would be and how kind of like realistic feeling and true to life. It says it cures loneliness, and I hate that way of phrasing that. It reminds me of Fahrenheit 451. If you've read the book, I don't know if the TV shows or the movies because I haven't seen them, so I don't know if they have this part, but in the book, at least, the wife of the fireman has these like full wall-sized televisions, and the people who kind of come out, like she feels like she has a relationship with them, and she's so wrapped up and bought into those relationships that she doesn't even really care to interact with her husband. And so there is something in there that's really, really creepy to me, that it's like this is replacing human connection for us. And at one level, you could, I guess, argue that that's good for people who are very lonely and don't have the ability to interact with other humans, that they at least get something, but I don't think it's good. I think it's a crutch, and I think we need to spend more time together than with our TVs. I think you probably agree. Again, it says it makes you fat. It's mostly because it makes you sedentary, and there may be some subliminal messaging in there that makes you want to eat certain products and drink certain things. And they have studied that as well. Again, it's mostly to do with the sedentary. If you are watching lots of TV, you're not moving around doing stuff. But it is true that it makes you violent. And a lot of people don't think so. We had this whole debate in like the 90s and the 2000s. Like, it doesn't, it's not the TV, it's the parents, and it's this and it's that. And it's like, it really is actually been studied many times. And it seems to have a strong indication that watching lots of violence on TV and movies correlates to an ability to perform violent acts more readily, right? And including children watching cartoon violence is also, even if it's fake violence and even if it's like a kid's funny thing and they're just like slapping each other, that still counts. Your brain still registers that as violence and makes it more acceptable to you. So it really actually does have an effect on how violent people are. So that's interesting too. This is just from Cracked. This is just a shitty resource. It's just like going through the basics. But so we know, even based on these like very, surface level things, that TV is literally rewiring our brain and making us act differently, behave differently, and have different health and outcomes in life. So that in itself is terrifying, and it should make us all question whether or not we ever want our children to use any screens at all. And I want to check in with the chat again. Yes, Gordon says, anytime medication is suggested, it needs to be questioned. And that includes, of course, when a medical professional is suggesting it, right? No matter when it's suggested. What's up, Jeff Green? Nice to see you tonight. I like Chad's explanation when we were talking about whether or not our whole goal of having, brain states in our brain or whatever is to be happy. Brain says no. What did I just say? Chad says no. I argue that we want to experience pain and happiness to discover truth and duality. I can dig it. Extremes are sometimes necessary. So John Jacob says, according to Brainwaves and the Deeper States of Consciousness by Tanya Katsos, the optimal level for visualization is the alpha theta border. So that's that hypnagogic state. right between sleep and deep relaxation. It is the gateway to your subconscious mind. Excellent. It's almost like they quoted that in that article. So, and that's perfect segue into this, because we know that your brainwaves change when you watch TV. In less than 1 minute of television viewing, the person's brainwave switched from beta, which is your active logical thought, to alpha, which is that deeper meditative and almost sleeping state. So again, that's that state where you can, as Tanya says, it's the optimal for visualization and the gateway to our subconscious mind. So it's really easy when we're in this alpha state to supplant, or I should say implant, ideas and concepts and, what do they call it? Subconscious primers, all of these things into our mind as though they were our own. So I guess supplant was actually a good choice of words on accident, because they're going to kick ourselves out and implant themselves. So one thing to keep in mind is that means our logical thought tunes out during television viewing. So it's hard to take in data in a critical fashion when you're watching TV. You can do it. I think I do it. I think any of us can do it, but I think we have to be pretty intentional about it and stay really objective and not get sort of lost. It's hard to describe, but Phoenix described it as, if you think about it, you're like often putting your attention outside of yourself and aiming it at something. And if you can sort of keep it back with you while you're looking at this television, you might be able to keep this from happening. Research has repeatedly shown that watching television produces brainwaves in the low alpha range, so we know that it's true. Advertisers also know that it's true, and they take advantage of it. Like this points out, there's not actually a reason for advertisers to use subliminal messages. I looked at a study about subliminal messages, and they call it psychic priming. That's the word, psychic priming, and it doesn't actually have a lot of effect to slip in sort of, supposedly. And again, obviously, this could be bullshit. Supposedly, it doesn't have a lot of effect to slip in, really quick images or really quick sound bites or sort of hidden sound or any of those things. It has maybe a slight effect if the person was already in a state of mind. Like if they had already, here's an example. If I had already made up my mind that I'm thirsty, and then something came on and was like subconsciously telling me like, you like Coke way more than Pepsi. And then I got up to go get a drink and someone's like, do you want a Coke or a Pepsi? I would be more likely to say Coke. But it's not 100% of the time. It's not foolproof. And this is at least based on some of the studies that are done. I guarantee you there's hidden studies we don't know about that show otherwise, when you combine this alpha state with various other cues, I'm guessing that it's actually quite effective to do all kinds of other things. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. We know that this happens when we watch TV. It is actually studied and true. So this is an actual scientific journal article in the journal Social Neuroscience. It's called Subliminal Affective Priming Changes the Feeling Towards Neutral Objects in Infancy. And I just stumbled upon this, and I also thought of Brave New World when I was reading this, because in Brave New World, if you've read it, and again, I haven't seen the TV or the movie adaptation, so I'm not sure if they show it, but they take infants, very, very tiny infants who you would think, don't know enough to like start training for anything, and they start psychically priming them and subconsciously influencing them, putting them into certain brain states so that they can receive these messages as early as a couple months old, or maybe even it's even before they are born. They start doing it in the book. Anyway, they start conditioning them to like their station in life and to behave in certain ways and to have certain, morals and values. And so this article is about how you can actually affect the behavior and sort of basic conceptual foundation of infants as young as 3 months old. Through very basic things here with happy and angry faces. And that's how they did it in the book too. They're very simple, explosion sounds were bad and happy cooing was good and just things like that. So, when you think about it at a basic level, we kind of do this. Like we train kids, our babies and our kids, to act certain ways through our cues that we give them and guiding them in certain directions, whether they're verbal or, our body language or whatever it is in various different levels of cueing. So it kind of makes sense, but it's also creepy to think about that you could do this in a way that was negative. So like everything we're talking about tonight, it's a double-edged sword. You can use it for creating humans that are well adapted and good and beautiful and true. And you can also create horror. So there's that. Subliminal affective priming changes the feeling towards neutral objects in infancy. And then we get into the more directly, openly nefarious things. And so this is a United States patent. This is old news. Again, a lot of you probably already know about this, but it's not bad to review even if you do. This patent, I don't know if it was discovered by like normal people in 1992 or if that's when they filed it, but the abstract for the patent says, a silent communication system in which non-aural carriers in the very low or very high audio frequency range or in the adjacent ultrasonic frequency spectrum are amplitude or frequency modulated with the desired intelligence and propagated acoustically or vibrationally for inducement into the brain, typically through the use of loudspeakers, earphones, or piezoelectric transducers. The modulated carriers may be transmitted directly in real time or may be conveniently recorded and stored on mechanical, magnetic, or optical media for delayed or repeated transmission to the listener. If you need decoding, that basically is saying that they're using audio, whether it's supra or within the hearing range or not, it's at least at the edges, the cusp of the hearing range or above, in order to plant ideas directly into your brain. So this is a patent, and we know that they have this. It's silent, of course. That's why it's called a silent communication system. We can't really hear it. Technically, our brain can hear it, but we don't perceive it. We don't perceive hearing it. It's a method of planting subliminal messages into your brain, right? This is not the same as voice to skull. This is below your conception, your ability to perceive it. Anyway, the rest is just patent stuff. You've probably seen this again, like I said, but it's creepy to note that they have developed the methods in order to directly influence your brain at a level that you cannot perceive. We have various schematics surrounding this, which you've also perhaps seen in various posts or articles or shows or whatever. But we clearly see that they use these transmission towers that we have all over our society. We clearly say that they show that they use mobile phones as well. We see that they have the idea that they would have vans that could drive, be a mobile unit to more directly influence certain people. It does point out that they can do individual or group remote mind control via helicopter with psychotronic weapons. And so it makes some of us who have had helicopters hover around our house sometimes wonder if that's what they were doing when they were doing that. And they also talk about which hertz are going to affect different areas of your brain. So let's go back to enlarging that. Whether it's your motor control, that's obviously your physical movement control, your auditory cortex, what you hear, your visual cortex, what you see. Somatosensory. What does that mean? Somatosensory. Of or relating to the perception of sensory stimuli. So it's just your feeling, your tactile feeling. And your thought center. So they can make you lose or have certain motor impulse coordinations. They can make you hear things that are not actually coming through your ears, but just going directly into your brain. So that's the voice to skull. They can put images in your brain, which probably look very real to you. They can do phantom touch. So again, you feel things on you or around you. Your physical senses are saying that you feel something, but it's not there. And subconscious thoughts, including, I'm sure, emotions. We have more creepy schematics or diagrams here. And this is supposedly a list of all the ways that they can affect you through those technologies. They can read your thoughts and broadcast thoughts to you, make you think certain things. They can control your dreams. They can force waking visions. that's hallucinations. They can make you hear things. Even if your eyes are closed, you can still see things. This tinnitus we're going to come back to because it's a very interesting connection to why you might be having tinnitus if you're one of the people that has it. They can force you to move your jaw and clack your teeth. That sounds like hell. Forced muscle quaking, so like muscle spasms, which is horrible. This is crazy. They can force precision manipulation of the hands, so they can make your hand do things. Like, have you seen, there was some like sketch comedy show maybe or something where like someone's hand was like the Satan's hand, it wasn't theirs, and they had to like I think it was even Jim Carrey or whatever, but it's almost like that was real. Forced memory blanking, induced changes to hearing, sudden violent itching in your eyelids, forced manipulation of airways, including externally controlled forced speech. So they can make you say stuff. I don't know how much of this is real or how much they would like us to believe it's real, but these are all supposedly things that they can affect by inducing various brainwave patterns and stimulating different areas of your brain using electromagnetic frequencies. Violently, rash itching, nudging of your arm during delicate or messy work, causing injury and spills. Like, it's just assholes. It's just like shitty ghosts or something. Like, fuck you. Special attention to genital area, itching, forced orgasm. Jesus. Intense pain. I've seen this a million times, but I've never read it this closely because I'm just like, yeah, okay, that shit might be able to happen, but I don't want to think too much about it. Intense general pain, hot needles, push deep into flesh. I have that all the time, but I just think I have nerve damage. Also, wild flailing, sometimes followed by short periods of rigor mortis. Jesus. Hard to reach itches on your toes. Bending toes backwards one at a time. Overheating, pain, sleep prevention. Wow, this is just torture. This is all just torture. So they can apparently torture us through control of our brain wave states. Yeah, creepy stuff. Sorry to be so dark if you just like tuned in. It gets better. We get better. Again, we have this bioelectric field around us that they can measure. This is not necessarily our brain waves. These are the other waves coming out of other areas of our bodies, and all of them sort of coalescing into one bioelectromagnetic field. I see people's auras if I would like to, and I believe this is what I see. And the other people seeing auras see the same thing. I believe this is what is measured if you get one of those aura pictures that you can get. I think that this is it. And so they have also learned how to manipulate this, which includes your brainwave states. And so they can put you into certain states of brainwave. So if you think about that and you look back to all the things that the different wave states were for, you can imagine how they could put you to sleep in an instant. You can imagine how they can make you go into that sort of hypnagogic place and like receive, direction or, ideas very easily, and all kinds of other things. But you could also use this for good. I just don't think that anyone is, but you could actually help people, put them into gamma at the right time or whatever. But anyway, that's sad. And so we have the NSA, the National Security Agency, and this site is talking about their covert operations. And a lawsuit filed against the NSA revealed a frightening array of technologies and programs designed to keep tabs on individuals. And so they go into some of the same stuff we've already covered. And of course, we know that they're watching our emails and doing all these things. But they also talk about remote computer tampering, but EMF fields for human surveillance. So sensing our bioelectric field remotely and being able to decode a person's brain states and thoughts. So if you wanted to track somebody and have a pretty good idea of what they were like planning or thinking about or whatever, you could do this. And this diagram just shows you that there's a lot of various people and organizations that could be in on it all at once. But they can also stimulate your brain with EMF, like we've also already seen. It does bring up the MKUltra program, which we'll touch on. But it again goes into all the various different transmitters or transceivers, I should say, that can be used to employ this to direct certain EMF fields at certain people or groups for certain reasons. And this is way back in 1974. They were able to do voice to skull and other sorts of brainwave state manipulation. Hypnosis, just induced sudden hypnosis, like we were just talking about, and all kinds of stuff. So it's just saying, like, they've been doing that for so long, of course they can still do it. And that all of the, if you know of Echelon, you know that the U.S. works with, Britain and Israel and Australia and all these different intelligence agencies, and they're all doing the same sort of stuff. And even though they don't admit it, I'm sure that most governments are also doing the same. And obviously, if you're in a more populated metropolitan area, you're going to have way more of these possible control mechanisms around you. But just an interesting review of the sort of network that they have in place for using these types of things. This person talks about, this is the Pythagorean Order of Death, dedicated to restoring Atlantean democracy. Again, I'm not promoting this. I don't know anything about this person. This one site is kind of interesting. But they just talk about how those things we were just talking about, this patent that we just looked at, these sort of methods, they talk about subliminal sound and silent sound, and how that replaced their sort of efforts to just do subliminal messaging during, television and radio and whatnot, and that this is a more effective, it's more direct, and it's more precise in its control. But this was the site that mentioned that these silent sounds are at the upper level of frequency, and that might result in the target hearing a high-pitched tone or hiss but no words. And that is my understanding of what tinnitus is. And I have tinnitus every once in a while too. And I was always told tinnitus is like the last time your brain will hear that note. But then I'm like, well, then why do I hear it over and over again? Or whatever. And it's like your ear is dying, and so it like whatever. And I guess that was supposed to make sense, but it doesn't really. And this makes more sense that like some sort of fucking EMF thing is like coming into your brain at like the highest sort of level before you wouldn't be able to hear it, and that there's actually intelligible data in there, but you don't consciously take it in, you subconsciously take it in. And so I get it. It was an interesting aha moment today, because I'm like, I bet that is exactly what tinnitus is. And I bet the people who suffer from tinnitus all the time are either more targeted or they're more sensitive to these that are probably continuously sent out at us from various different sources. So I just wanted to grab that little piece from this page, because the rest of it is basically what we've already been over. And of course, for anybody kind of like, this is all crazy, this couldn't possibly happen, blah, blah, blah. We know that Project MKUltra and Project Bluebird and all these, Artichoke and like all of these, is Artichoke one? I think Artichoke was one of these too, where that mind control was actually performed on human subjects by our CIA and other international government organizations. And that it was horrifying. Like, look at the list of things. I'm sorry if you, again, probably are familiar, but these are all proven, actual conspiracies that happened in the past that I still think not enough people are aware of. But they had techniques that included the covert administration of high doses of psychoactive drugs. Can you imagine just being given high doses of psychoactive drugs when you weren't ready? Like, that's so rude. That's so gross torture. Especially LSD and other chemicals, electroshocks, hypnosis, ding, 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 sensory deprivation, which is another way to put your brain in a certain state, isolation, which is another way to put your brain in a certain state, verbal and sexual abuse, as well as other forms of torture. That is all documented. That is what our government did to people to try and create Manchurian candidates, to try to make the perfect spy, probably to make sex slaves, all kinds of stuff. Again, you can know that possibly some aspect of working with our brainwaves can be used for good, but these aspects were obviously used for great evil and are documented in various fully real, actually true government documents that were released. So we know that that's true. Behavioral control happened. Why did I have another article about it? Oh, they wanted to be able to control our memory. That was an interesting piece. They wanted to make people ask in ways that would discredit them through aberrant behavior, right? So if they make you act crazy, no one will believe you anymore. They wanted to alter sex patterns. This one was very interesting to me because I know a lot of times in this community we can kind of touch on whether or not there's like an agenda with our sexuality. No matter where you land on the spectrum of gay, straight, bi, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But when you think about the sort of desecration of sex in general as this like, sacred act that is no longer made sacred in our culture, it's interesting that they focus on the alteration of sex patterns to make you more suggestible and to create dependence, whether that's drug dependence or dependence on like the government or like a handler. I'm not sure. I'm guessing on a handler. But I just thought that was an interesting list. I always think of like the spies and the Manchurian candidates and these things, but that list was sort of another interesting set of reasons why they wanted to control people's minds. Did I mean to be down on sleep-induced terrorism? What is this? Oh, yeah, I did. Let's go back. Go back to sleep-induced terrorism. So in this article on wakeupworld.com, which, may or may not be a good source, but it describes the process of hypnotizing two young women, instructing one to receive a bomb and learn how to activate it, and the other to give the bomb and the instructions how to activate it. And it's not something that either woman would ever normally do. So Mike Williams and I of Sage of Quay talked the other day about how, because that's what I asked. I was like, I don't really trust hypnosis. If someone were going to hypnotize me, is it like the movies where they can like just make you do things you would never do? And he was like, by no means could they do that. But I wonder if I went back and asked him about this idea, if they put you into the right brainwave state and you were in a state of, let's say, like that deep sleep or deep meditation where they access your subconscious, if they could, in fact, plant things like this. So in this released government document, supposedly, they did do this to these women. And so who knows if this is kind of misinformation to make us think that they can control our behavior or whether this actually happened. But they talk about giving them the instructions. They changed the plan a little bit. But it does say that each girl acted out their part perfectly. And it's something that they would never have done. So, again, whether it's real or not, let's see. I don't know. We'll just probably jump through sites trying to find the original source. But they also talk about hypnotism as a means to abuse people. Couldn't they also be taken advantage of sexually? And apparently, based on the CIA document, that they could be definitely taken advantage of sexually if they were in the right state of mind, or rather the wrong state of mind. So I just wanted to point out those other two possible misuses of putting people in certain brainwave states, sadly. But it was also interesting that ayahuasca alters your brainwave states. Obviously it does, right? We would have guessed that. But it's just interesting that the state it puts you in is a waking, dreamlike state. When I hear about a DMT and ayahuasca trips, that's exactly what it sounds like, is this incredibly lucid dream where you are exactly like you are now in full functionality, full faculty, but you're in this other dimension of being, which I do think you go to in your dreams, but you don't always have conscious recollection. You don't necessarily experience it, in this much sort of realism. And so it's interesting that they just put it that way, that DMT puts you in that waking dream state. It's the same brainwave state, right? So it just tells me that there is a lot to some of these drugs and where you go and how you go there. So I think that's all I wanted to point out here. And that this alters our consciousness, is this next article. Placebo-controlled investigation of the effects of hallucinogen DMT on the resting brain activity. And again, it looks like a waking dream. It's a waking dream state. I hope you can't hear me drinking this coconut water because that'd probably be gross. And I'm like chewing on the pieces of coconut, which is so yummy. I just keep saying the same thing. Waking dream, waking dream. I thought they were going to say we afterwards our brains were rewired permanently. But I guess that's not what they were going to say. Sorry. So moving on. I also thought it was interesting that here's another positive use of brainwave state. manipulation. And that's in modalities like EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a form of treatment for PTSD and CPTSD. And if you have watched the show long enough, you know that I have CPTSD, and I eventually did EMDR and found it to be highly, highly effective at allowing me to reorganize my states of mind that I would be in when I was triggered into a flashback into a sort of cohesive whole narrative that could kind of go back into my brain, and I no longer would be triggered in such a way and no longer have flashbacks relating to those certain triggers. So it was very, very effective, and it all relied on me being able to get into the right brainwave state in order to receive that reprocessing. So there are aspects of mind control. This is mind control, I've been mind controlled basically. And, someday someone's going to come back and take that clip and make it seem like I'm in the Illuminati or something. But this is a way that we can use our brain states to accomplish something very healing and very promising and good. And it doesn't have the same effect on everyone. Some people don't have that much result with it. I would tend to think that'd be because they didn't get into that sort of alpha brainwave state, or theta even, or whatever it is you need to be in. Or maybe they didn't stay there long enough, or maybe, they couldn't access the memory because it was really, really repressed and they had to do other memories first. They didn't do it in the right order, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of reasons why it might not work. But in basic terms, you are literally manipulating your brain, controlling your mind in order to get into a certain state, and then reprocessing things and reorganizing them. So could they do this in a negative way? Probably. Could probably use a similar method to instead implant certain, behaviors, ideas, or whatever. But it can be used for good. And I like to, as we wind the show down, get into all the ways that it can be used for good. So one, you can get into the right brainwave state to have waking dreams, lucid dreams, or go into other dimensions with your consciousness. You can reprocess unhealthy aspects of your psychology into something more effective and productive for you and more healed. And you can get yourself into those states through meditation. So you can do this for yourself. You don't have to go to a therapist and trust EMDR. You can learn how to manipulate your own brainwave states. And I think the big key to this is to remember that if you can do this, you're also less likely to be able to be manipulated from outside, because you will have a conscious effort that you had made in the past. You'll have a habit. You'll have a pattern that you can follow to be consciously engaged in the creation and monitoring of your own brainwave states. And I genuinely believe that that's why some people can't be affected by these various EMF methods of trying to affect you. As much as we went through all that scary stuff, I think that you can actually protect yourself. And I think that this is part of how. I think the more you practice with these things and meditate, the more that you can do that for yourself. So it goes through a lot of things we've already gone into, right? But it's just interesting that each brainwave state has its own sort of way of meditating that can get you into that state. And so you can literally practice any of them and learn how to get into certain states on your own. So I think that's cool. And then it also just goes through some benefits added to what I've already said about protecting yourself and being aware of your brain state, wave state, and, being in more control of it. But it also increases the gray matter of your brain. It reduces anxiety. It increases resilience, reduces stress. It increases creativity. It improves your memory. I have definitely experienced that one. My memory has gotten way better since I started working with my own brainwave states and intentionally trying to improve my memory. There's also hard science on these things that various different forms of meditation actually have effects on your brain wave states. And so if that wasn't already clear, it's true, it's proven, it's materialist, we know that it's true. And that there's, again, the various methods of meditation have different effects. That's measurable as well. I guess I wanted to get into gamma wave brain state, but we already did on that one article, so I'm not going to... this is why I pulled this one up. Because look at this. If you get yourself into a gamma state, It's that large scale brain network activity. So that makes sense to me that that would be, I don't know. I feel like this is more like flow than what that other article was saying with alpha and theta. But this, because if you're in gamma and it's a large scale brain network activity, it feels to me like that would be this sort of bird's eye view of everything, and that is more like flow state. But I don't know. Increases your working memory, your attention, your perceptual grouping, can be increased in amplitude via meditation or neurostimulation, because again, they can control our brainwave states in various ways. Excuse me. Altered gamma activity has been observed in many mood and cognitive disorders such as Alzheimer's disease, epilepsy, and schizophrenia. So that was what was interesting me to pull out of this one, that like Alzheimer's disease is to do with gamma activity. It just says altered gamma activity too. So I don't know if that means that you're not getting enough or you're getting too much. Epilepsy, I would almost think would be too much. Alzheimer's, I would almost think would be too little. And schizophrenia, who knows? Maybe schizophrenia has something to do with like going into it too frequently or something. I'm totally guessing now, but I just wanted to pull out that gamma waves have something to do with those things because it's fascinating to me, and we could probably do a whole show just on gamma waves and how it affects various things. But two more things I wanted to leave you guys with are tools that you today could go out and start using in order to work with more directly your own brainwave states and control them and get benefits from them. And so the one that I've been using for years is HemiSync. And I cannot tell you how profound the experiences I've had with HemiSync. There are people who do not trust HemiSync because it comes from the Monroe Institute, and they believe that the Monroe Institute is, conflicted, or, the CIA has ties with it. And this is true. The CIA does have ties with it. Honestly, the CIA has ties with anything that is effective in the world. That's their job, is to use every tool they can to accomplish their goals. So I don't just out of hand dismiss anything just because the CIA has had a connection with it. I think that that's a silly thing to do. It's a logical fallacy to do. It's a genetic fallacy, and it's not an effective way to think about the world. So I'm not saying that you should absolutely trust it, or even that I should. I'm saying that I've tried it and I have really positive, really great effects from it, and I enjoy those a lot. It includes increasing my alertness and my ability to focus on things. My creativity, my memory has improved. I've had near to out-of-body experiences. I've had communications from who knows where. You could say my subconscious if you're a materialist. You could say my spirit guides if you're a spiritualist. Wherever they came from, they were profound and were not in my mind before that. They came from somewhere. And other experiences that would take a long time to go through. But so they're very effective as far as I'm concerned. And there's a lot of different benefits that they point out that you can gain. Wellness as well. I really think that physically my body responds really well to these forms of meditation. And basically they use binaural sounds and various other methods. It's basically something you listen to, and it's like a guided audio meditation, but it's based like heavily in the science of your brain wave states and how to get people in and out of them. So they also have this course I just noticed today when I was looking at this about mediumship and how anybody can develop the mediumship gift. So, I don't know that I want to talk to random entities, and I don't know that you do either, but this person does. So I guess they can help you do that. But anyways, there's a lot of different HemiSync programs that you can purchase. I do the Waves version, and I want to try other ones as well because they have been so effective, and I think they're very I think they're very expensive as well. I did not purchase mine because I'm a pirate, and if you do pirate something, I suggest you don't, because that is something that is illegal. If you were to pirate something, I would suggest you get the FLAC files, because FLAC, it's lossless compression, and so the audio is at its highest quality. So look for the FLAC files. And finally, you can, for free, which is way cheaper than HemiSync and way less fuss than going to be a pirate, you can for free go to Phoenix Aurelius's site right now. I'm going to put this link in the description. But if you do go to phoenixaurelius.org, you go to media and you go down to tools and resources, the first thing you'll see is energy tools for self-healing. And Phoenix gave this all to us for free. on his last episode here. And so I'm not absolutely sure that this link is going to still be working when you are listening to this, whenever you're listening to this. But if you would like to try to go get this for free, if you just click on it, add it to your cart, go to checkout and put in the coupon code ROGUEWAYS, then you can get this for free. And these are also great tools in order to get you into really positive meditations that can affect you on various levels. So I really like to leave you guys with tools and with a positive message of hope and what you can do about things. And so I hope it wasn't too dark to travel down all of the ways in which our brainwave states can be used against us and to manipulate us into various, states of being and thoughts and actions and all of those things. It's scary to think about those things. And so I know I'm not just saying these things when I say that you can protect yourself from those things as well. Like I said, I think the best way to do so is to work with your own brainwave states and manipulation thereof. And those tools that we went over at the end are the best ways to do that. Meditation at all. Any kind of meditation that you're doing is going to help you have more control over these things. Especially if you do HemiSync, if you can find it, if you can access that, and especially if you can do Phoenix Aurelius's energy tools for free, using the Rogue Ways coupon. So those things are ways to empower yourself, no matter how you look at this set of issues, whether you don't think, the government uses these or whatever nefarious forces use these tools against you or not, you can still increase your abilities and your well-being by using these tools. So I think it's just good for anybody. And before I wind down permanently, I want to say what's up again to everybody in the chat. Tinnitus is an audiophile's greatest fear. Yeah, gross. I'm lucky. I have tinnitus like once a year or so, like very rarely. So Drew here's ringing all the time. I'm sorry. I hope it's not this. I hope that's not actually what tinnitus is. Sexual abuse happened on many psychologists' couches in the 70s and 80s with patients who were under hypnosis. Ugh, that's horrible. That's from Mahad Dharmapala. What's up? Nice to see you here. And again, I think I'm with Mike Williams on this, that if you don't trust your psychologist, you shouldn't be doing this anyway. And if you're not in a state of deep trust and willingness, that I think it's hard to get people into these states where you could be deeply affected or abused. And so that's my takeaway, is that I can control my own state, and I can keep other people from being able to control it by being sort of present and aware. Not paranoid, not anxious, not fearful, just aware and confident and competent. Yeah. Gordon says, right, dig hard in this so it cannot be used on you ever again. And so speaking of that, Gordon's episode, like I said, has a lot to do with this topic, because Gordon was possibly manipulated in ways that we don't even know yet, and he definitely had an implant placed inside his body. He shows it on the video on Rogue Ways, on the episode Gordon Hamill is on. It's called Gordon Hamill Rogue Ways. I just forget the number of the episode right now, because I didn't plan on talking about it, but you can see he puts a magnet on it and it sticks to it. And so he does have an implant there and various experiences to go along with it. And so he very likely experienced a lot of this manipulation that we're talking about. And so Gordon specifically says that he digs hard into this, meditation practices and practicing controlling your own brainwave states so that it can never happen to him again. So again, I think this is a good protective tool, as well as just an all-around well-being tool that you can easily teach yourself when you start incorporating it into your life. So Puke Taco is here, and you're new and you heard of me through Phoenix on Tinfoil Hat. Thank you. That's awesome. I've got a lot of love from Phoenix on Tinfoil Hat, and I got a lot of people coming by to say what's up. So it's really nice to have you here. And I guess it's as good a time as any to mention that Janice Barcelo will be on the show this Sunday. This Thursday, I'm going to do an episode on the Fallen Ones. That's going to be really fun. I might throw in some green language into that. So I might do the Fallen Ones and green language, because they seem to tie together to me. And after that, I'm looking forward to having some other people on the show who haven't confirmed yet, but we've got always a lot coming up, so stay tuned. And thank you guys for talking me up. I love it. Yes. So who or what is that? I don't know what you're asking. I'm sorry, Chad. If you want to repeat your question, I might be able to answer it. Pew Taco says BW Gen was a very old but good binaural beat generator. It was very customizable. Oh, that's awesome. I use Brainwave Tuner just for regular binaural beats if I'm on like a plane or something and I just want to like, get like relaxed. But I've heard that there's some stuff that's sort of implanted into a lot of these audio files. And so I just get nervous sometimes like suggesting various things to people because there are some programs that supposedly then find whether there's anything hidden, which is nice if you want to do that first. But for some reason, I trust HemiSync. Maybe it's dumb. Maybe I'm an idiot. Do your own research and find out for yourself what works for you. But I definitely trust Phoenix. I can definitely say if you do that free Energy Tools album, that will never bring harm to you. 100%. Phoenix is an amazing human. But yes, and Gordon Hamill points out we can make ourselves immune and even heal our brains. We can do so much for ourselves in our lives, whether it's manifestation of certain situations and actual physical, things in our lives, whether it's controlling our brainwave states, whether it's healing our body, mind, body, soul, all the parts of our body, all the parts of our brain, and bringing it all into sync, and whether it's practicing just sort of having gratitude and awareness of what's around you, even in dark times, trying new things and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I mean, all of these things are just tools that we are gathering along the way to keep ourselves healthy, whole, and sane. And that doesn't make it easy all the time. I know we're in very tough times for a lot of people, and this is maybe like the last thing on your mind to throw on your plate is meditation and these things. But I genuinely have experienced and believe that when you do things like this, it affects all areas of your life, and it affects your ability to handle all types of stressors. And especially, if they're going to ramp things up, moving forward, then we want to be as prepared as possible, as always. And the way we do that is not by pacing and worrying and freaking out and like listing all the possible future scenarios in our head and thinking about all of what we're going to do for all. That's not how we do it. How we do it is by being calm and centered in ourselves and developing those tools inside of ourselves, inside of our minds, bodies, and souls, so that we can keep ourselves well and whole in every moment, no matter what happens. And that is the key. So until you are ready to keep yourself completely well and whole in mind, body, and soul, and be prepared for anything that comes your way, because you are so prepared and you are the master of your own self and being, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah. See you guys Thursday.
Nasty motherfuckers with a hook and a sickle. Brought to you advertisement, bone plated nickel. Fire rate automatic smash from the get-go. Snack on the whack, fermented flesh disco. Abracadabra, archaic altars don't slabber. Hey, making jabbers with reality backwards. Hunting rap nerds, bodyguard collected actors. Munitions are famished, let them feast upon the dapper. Bloody bibs and muddy kicks, feasting on amygdala. Iron fist, tyrant shit, APO will rip you up. The rhyme rainmaker, vein style backbreaker. Genghis Khan depleted uranium satellite lasers. Cloaked in anonymity, I know you never heard of me. No rusted tools used for Crowley style surgery.
Dissect a whole set, God body. God taught me to dissect the whole body. When it gets sloppy, I'ma get there. Rhymes rare like steak, get crushed like Christ to create 52 states. And it's Baghdad, dust to towels, no rags. Straight milk dash, dust to ash. Turbans while the niggas perkin'. It's on purpose, my service touches the sun's surface, and rainbows touch serpents. My light all night shines so bright. I'm a star for eons, Hollywood's for peons, cause they try to copy the same shit we on. Ay, I ain't done yet. Lungs depleted and can't breathe, can't believe it. Trying to seek it while trying to peep it, it's a secret. Now you're nobody, label somebody. Trying to claim John Gotti, it's yours truly, God body.